Hello and welcome to the Route 1 Show, the podcast bringing you all the latest football action from West Yorkshire and beyond. I'm Stephen Brown and with me is Tim the Feather Fact Sheet. You alright, Tim?
Alright, Steve, how you doing?
I'm good. So Tim, another busy week of football action. What's taking your eye this week?
Well, we have two teams in a final.
We do, yeah. Explain more, because when you said this, now for listeners, you know, sometimes my research is a little bit ropey. That's why I'm not nicknamed the Fact Sheet. Tim did inform me of this. Would you like to let the listeners know what final you're on about?
It is a West Riding County Cup final.
Excellent.
Bradford City Ladies beat Brighouse 6-0 the other night, and they'll be playing Leeds on the 1st of April.
Whoa.
So if you remember the show back a couple of months ago when we had Amy Driver on, that's her team, so she'll be...
Fantastic. Let's try and get Amy on then before the final.
Bradford Leeds derby in a final.
Go on, here we go. Go on.
1st of April, I think people should get down and have a watch.
Absolutely, yeah, that's fantastic. Now, you put something out interesting on Twitter, Tim. This was great. It was asking various teams in our region, their fans, who they would like back at their club. Now, there weren't any rules here, were there, Tim? It could be someone who's retired now, or anyone, wasn't it? Anyone. From the past. Now, being a Leeds fan, you know, some people have said, you know, I've got a slight issue with this person, but who would you say that I would want back to Leeds? There's only one man, isn't there? Oh. Don't say Brian Dean. It's not Brian Dean.
Is it Mark Viduka?
It's not Mark Viduka. Mark Viduka would be probably top 15. To be fair, if we could take Mark Viduka back now.
In his prime.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's David Batty.
It's David Batty, absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. That is what Leeds need. Someone who just goes out on the pitch and gets it done. We're in dire straits. We need a David Batty type figure. Bradford City fan, who would you say for Bradford City? Who would you like to pull back?
Me personally, I think it's going to have to be... It was a toss-up.
It was a call, surely.
Well, yeah, you see, it was a toss-up between three, right? It was because, you know, I only properly started following three. Go for it.
Right, I'd say McCall, Beagray or Windass.
2 out of 3. 2 out of 3 bad. Robbie Blake.
Oh, Robbie Blake.
Great player.
Blake was fantastic.
On the Twitter, we had Chris Taylor. He said Benito Carbone, and my reply was not the wages, I would think.
Okay. No.
We could
Benito Carbone, but what you'd pay him now?
We had a Guiseley Dandelion 8, St James Walshaw, and Adam Bridson agreed with him, and he said, but he's doing really a good job at Hartlepool, and they had a good result at the weekend as well. Jamie Bantam for Bradford again said Tom Adeyemi, which would be a good one.
Absolutely.
So we've had a few replies there, and you know, I won't say no to any of them.
We're going to ask the correspondents tonight who they would like to see back for their club from the past, so that's going to be interesting. I'm going to be interested to see what they say. Looking at a little bit broader, what about Newcastle team? You've got a soft spot for Newcastle. Who would you like to see back at Newcastle? They've had some great players last 20 years.
Michael Owen. I'm joking. I'm joking.
It's got to be Shearer, hasn't it? Shearer? Ginola? Asprilla.
You know,
just sexy. What a sexy team Newcastle. Batty, even David Batty. You could
last season I went to go see Newcastle, and Christina Aspria was in the crowd, and he came out and he gave a wave and everything, and it was just, he took a penalty as well, which was fantastic. Wow. But no, it would be Shearer for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So carry on with your tweets. Let us know who you'd like to see back. I suppose we can extend it to England as well with the World Cup coming back. The England player I would like to see back most will probably be David Batty. You'd probably say someone like Gaza.
Can I just say, you said David Batty. David Batty is not allowed anywhere near an England setup.
The penalty shootout, alright, fair enough, but can I just say, he didn't cry about it, and he didn't make a lot of money on adverts for it.
No, neither did I, but I did cry.
So did I. Right, coming up on the show then, we're going to have all the updates from our teams here in our region, including Leeds United, Huddersfield Town, Bradford City, Guiseley, Halifax and Bradford Park Avenue. Plus, we're going to preview all of this weekend's Premiership action. Right, let's have a look at Leeds United now, and joining us on the line is our Leeds United correspondent. It's Jennifer Berry. Hi, Jane.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Hey, well, you know, we lost, but, you know, we didn't get thrashed, and it was, an alright performance, especially first half.
It was alright. It sounded like we should have won as well. So.
It did. Well, it was a bit unlucky, that, wasn't it? Again, we took the lead, but, we've thrown it away, haven't we, again?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite bad when you've got to a situation where you can just say, well, actually, at least we didn't get hammered.
That's what we were saying last week, that we were basically, we're going to lose, probably, but, not by 4 goals. That'd be nice.
If you can keep the margin down, then, yeah, great. But, I mean, you've got to look at positives, I suppose. You could have won, had some good chances too, and, they're a team that's, got some great form behind them, so...
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on to other issues that have happened this week, still waiting for a Football League decision. I was hoping we were going to hear something before we recorded the show, but it's dragged on. Unless there's been any breaking Twitter news whilst we've been doing the show, Jen, that you can update us on?
Not that I know of. I mean, I've sort of been following what's been going on today. There's these letters allegedly been flooding down to Football League.
Is that from David Haig?
Well, I don't think he's sure who sent them, to be honest. I think they said that Leeds United had sent them, and then they said GFH had sent them, and it's sort of, there's a lot of information that's flying about that just seems to contradict the other bit, so who knows what's going on.
It's a strange situation, is it, when, because fans on Twitter, etc., and even myself are like, oh, come on, he's only not paid, tax on a yacht. Let him run the club. That's what it seems to have come down to, doesn't it? Like, he's a crook, but come on, he's a rich crook. He's our crook.
No, I can't.
Come on, endorse him, Jen.
I can't.
No.
I mean, I've said this all along. I know he's had spent convictions and that, but at the end of the day, he is a crook, and it's not like he's just done one thing wrong. The fact is that, GFH sort of got into bed with a guy who was, awaiting trial for tax evasion. I think embezzlement was another one. I don't know what's come of that. He's awaiting 2 other sort of trials for avoiding tax on another yacht and a car.
He's basically Tony Soprano, isn't he? Really, that's what he is.
Just a terrible version of him. I mean, it's fine if you're going to live that sort of lifestyle, but at least know how to get away with it. And his solicitor, his lawyer, he just seems to be, in another world. Some of the stuff he's come out with has been hilarious. He's saying, we don't think he's guilty, and we're going to appeal it, and he's not guilty in the eyes of the law until the appeal's been heard. But it's just utter rubbish, and a lot of people are putting pressure on the Football League to say, hurry up, you need to make a decision. It's been too long, you've been fighting around. But on the other hand, if GFH have got into bed with a guy who is a convicted criminal, and they're the ones who are turning around and saying, actually, you're damaging our credibility by not putting this through. And it's like, well, hang on, if you can't get your own house in order, then
they have no credibility.
Well, exactly. It's a bit rich coming from them, but I think the Football League, they're in a position now where if they don't let him through, Leeds could be in a lot of trouble. And if they do let him through, they could be opening themselves to a lot. From a legal point of view, if they do let a convicted criminal take over a club, it doesn't obviously reflect well on them if that's going to be the case. So you can understand why they're taking a long time. They want to cover themselves, keep the reputation intact, keep things clean legally. So
a couple of things from me, Jen. I mean, I think if this had come a couple of months ago, I think it would have been accepted straight away. But I don't think it helps that I think it was a week or 2 ago, Carson Young got put in prison, and he's the owner of Birmingham. So I think the Football League have got to save face on that front, which annoys me really, because they allow owners like Vincent Tan and the Venkis to come in who have destroyed clubs, even though they're apparently law-abiding citizens. And finally, why didn't Chelina put it in his children's name? That's what I don't understand.
Well, I think it is something they do look at the sort of who's behind the company, and they do look into it in more detail. I mean, it would have seemed to be the simplest thing. I mean, look how much Bates got away with it, with all the sort of tangled web that he had, and he essentially sort of owned the club for all that time, and he was putting all the money in himself through, other companies that it took, 7 or 8 links before you realise it actually went back to him. So it is probably that they're able to do it. Maybe Chelina's prefers it just to be him, or he wants to keep it in the family, but there's got to be a better way, hasn't there?
Well, in the words of Brian Clough, all the owners are criminals. So.
Well, I think that probably covers it quite nicely, actually.
Absolutely. So getting back to matters on the pitch, Jen, it's Millwall up next. After what happened against Bolton, particularly, I have no confidence really that we'll do anything against them. I don't know how you feel about this.
You've got to try and take the positives, I suppose, from against Burnley. Try and concentrate on them. I think it is getting to the point as well where the fans are sort of seeing GFH for the sort of disaster that there have been, and I think some of it is now, even though that they're saying that they want Chelina, and even given his background, but I think they're finally sort of realising what David Haig has done to the club, and not in a good way.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
at least they're finding a way. They're actually getting united on these issues.
I think it's because people wanted it to be right, didn't they? After the Bates fiasco,
Exactly,
we were too easily drawn in, weren't we, by token gestures, I suppose.
To be honest, I think a lot of them have been exactly the same with this. All it took when he came, when he sort of was there, was I'm going to buy the stadium back and I'm going to buy the training ground, and he may well have done, or will do in future. But it's an empty gesture, kind of when you haven't even got the club, when you're sacked manager, when you're not even owner, and when you're a convicted fraudster. But people will believe what they will. Football's a fickle game. So I think, at least from from personally, I think I'm glad that the fans are sort of turning on GFH, because they've been an unmitigated disaster.
Absolutely. Well, maybe if Chileno doesn't, take over, maybe Kim Jong-un, maybe he's got a few spare millions or something. We don't know, do we? Jen, there we go. Another week of disappointment and heartache. But never mind. One week we'll have something to shout about, I'm sure.
Get better. I'm sure every week we talk about the same thing. But maybe next week, fingers crossed.
Yeah, we never know. Jen, thanks very much.
No worries.
Bye-bye. There we go, Jennifer Berry. It's really difficult actually, because
that comment really made me laugh. I love how it's like, maybe Kim Jong-un can take over. You've got a guy who didn't pay tax on a yacht, and what the UN believes to be a war criminal. It's just
He's
fantastic.
Got his finger over the nuclear trigger button, but just
for Man United.
Yeah, it's actually his son.
Saying that, they just probably sent Moyes, didn't they?
But it's Kim Jong-un dad. It's his son, but I don't know what his name is.
Kim Jong-un.
It's one of them, isn't it?
It's Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un. What did I say? Kim Jong-un.
It's probably the same thing. Kim
Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un. That's what it is.
Kim
Jong-un. Kim.
Jong-un. Yeah, lovely. Just a quick fact about him. Apparently, how all the propaganda is like they make him out to be brilliant. Apparently, when he first played golf, he got 9 hole-in-ones. The first time he ever played golf.
Was it a guy walking around like?
Yes, sir, you got a hole-in-one. Well done.
Yes, the tree does mean hole-in-one.
Leeds versus Millwall, Tim. I have no confidence at all. I don't actually think we can win a football match.
I think it's going to.
I think we're incapable of winning a football match.
Millwall have lost 11 on the road this season.
Yeah.
Leeds, their only home win this season has come against Huddersfield.
Yeah.
This year, sorry.
Yeah.
So I think that's got to change. However, Ian Holloway's got a side down there who are struggling. They'll be playing for summer, and Leeds might still have that, the attitude that it seemed like they had against Bolton, in my opinion, that, the season's over and the ones down below want it a little bit more. But I think I'm going to go for a Leeds win again. I'm going to go for West Yorkshire win.
And I'm going to get on the phone to Kim Jong-un, or Kim Jong-un, whatever.
Follow us on Twitter at The Route One Show. Visit our Tumblr, tumblr.com/The Route One Show, or email us, therouteoneshow@gmail.com.
Right, we're having a look at Huddersfield Town now, and I'm delighted to say joining us on the line is the Huddersfield Examiner's Doug Thompson. Hi, Doug.
Hiya, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Now, Doug, last week we discussed Huddersfield's form and this win, one, lose, one trend, and then we had that anomaly of the Charlton draw. And no, they've lost against Blackburn. Old boy Rhodes comes back and scores a hat-trick. You'd almost wish for that win-lose routine again, wouldn't we?
Yeah, it's thrown the equation, hasn't it?
It has, it's ruined it, that draw.
Yeah, a bit of a disappointment, obviously. I mean, it was a funny kind of game, It was at one stage it looked like it was going to end 3-3. Town kept coming back into it. Every time that they showed a bit of promise and a bit of likelihood of actually getting back into it, they made a sort of fairly grave mistake and let Blackburn score again. So that 2-goal cushion, was sort of quickly restored each time for Blackburn and just proved too much in the end, really.
Yeah, there was a point where Huddersfield had a couple of chances, didn't they? And then Smithy's mistake, it kind of sealed Huddersfield's fate, didn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, they created some pretty good chances all the way through the game, really, and probably fairly equal in terms of chances created between the two sides, but obviously Blackburn took theirs, which is the important thing as ever in football, isn't it?
Absolutely. What did you make of Rhodes celebrating his goals? This modern phenomenon now, isn't it, where players going back to their old teams who don't celebrate, but he seemed to kind of enjoy it.
Yeah.
I don't know, if that's galling or not.
I think he started off muted, and then the second one became a bit more, and the third, I think you can forgive him, really. I mean, obviously, a hat-trick, it's a big thing for any player, and, coming in front of their fans, obviously, it's pretty hard for him not to celebrate, and I don't think too many Town fans would have begrudged him, because we've seen plenty of good stuff from Jordan Rhodes over the years, and quite a few hat-tricks as well, so just a shame we were on the receiving end, but, fair play to him, he's a great player, Jordan. And,
how goals of a team's feel, Doug.
Yeah,
exactly.
For me, Doug, it was a little bit like... I don't think he was celebrating, to rub it in Huddersfield's face, because when he did score against, I think it was the first time he played against Huddersfield for Blackburn, and he didn't celebrate. But the fact that he celebrated in front of the Blackburn Rovers fans, I mean, at the end of the day, they're the ones who pay his wages now, to be honest. So why not?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's such a modern phenomenon, really, and as long as it's not too, overtly aggressive, and you're going right up to, the fans of your old club and taunting them effectively, I think it's fair enough to celebrate, because, like you say, they pay good money for him, and they're paying him good wages, and he's their player, and that, at the end of the day, he's a professional footballer, and he wants to do the best for the people that employ him, and fair play to him, really. And I think anybody who's come across Jordan or even had a slight bit of contact with him knows it really isn't his style to go around, taunting people and being over the top about things. You go a long way to meet a nicer bloke than Jordan Rhodes, to be fair. So, I think it's fair enough.
Moving it on a little bit, what do you make of Martin Patterson's comments in the Bristol Post this week? Do you think it was something basically explaining that he's disappointed at Huddersfield and he wants to play games? Do you think that's a dig at Huddersfield, or do you think that's maybe a way of trying to get Bristol to come in and get a signature for him?
I think maybe a little bit of both, really. I mean, I think he's disappointed the fact that he came in, to the team sort of fairly regularly over Christmas and scored quite a few goals. Unfortunately for him, Naki Wells came along, and that threw things a little bit. He fell down the pecking order again. For various reasons, it just really hasn't worked out for him this season at Huddersfield. And he's a proud guy, and he's quite an intense sort of bloke, Martin Patterson. He sort of punishes himself mentally if he doesn't do, or doesn't play as well as he thinks he should be playing. And he's certainly been beating himself up a bit, I think, over the last few months. And certainly in the short term, a fresh start, I think, will do him good, and regular games will. Whether that will become a permanent transfer, I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if it did, to be fair, because I think it's just one of those transfers that for various reasons just hasn't worked out, and maybe it'd be best for both clubs or both parties to sort of go their separate ways, really.
Sure. Now, I don't know if I'm reading too much into this, Doug, but Robbins came out and he said the safe, people are talking about getting to the next level, but we have to consolidate our position. Is that a little bit more conservative from Robbins than we've heard in the past? Because when I've heard him before, he's always kind of talked about that next level, but perhaps with the recent form and where Town are in the league, is kind of just holding a little bit back, trying to lower expectations, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I think typical of all football fans and Town fans in particular. You win a couple of games, everything's fantastic. You win a couple of games, you're absolutely down in the
why?
Yeah. I mean, it's got a lot more that way, hasn't it, over the last 5 or 6 years, I think.
Absolutely.
And I think he's always tried to sort of temper expectations. He's never really talked about any potential playoff push, and he's been careful to sort of avoid talking about getting sucked into a relegation battle. We talk about that kind of thing all the time, obviously. He's always been a bit more level about it, and has really tried to sort of temper things, and he's gone to great lengths really to point out it's a sort of long-term project. Maybe he calls it a 5-year plan. Whether we'll be there in 5 years, I don't know. But he constantly says that it's going to take a while. He needs to sort of embed the system that he wants to play. He likes to refer to it as making it part of your DNA, which is a common quote from him. Yeah, and obviously that's quite a big thing if it is going to become part of your DNA. So that takes a while, doesn't it? So I think he, in himself, he's reasonably happy with the overall progress, but obviously, no manager's happy with losing matches, and there's been a few too many of them, really, in recent times.
I mean, up next then, Doug, it's Blackpool, who, big expectations for them at the start of the season. They've lost both Insers under different circumstances, obviously. They're sitting, way down in the league at the moment. It's got to be a win for Town, hasn't it? Get back on track?
Well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, it's funny to look back. Town played them in September in front of the Sky cameras on a Friday evening. It was a fantastic game. Blackpool really were great for the first 45 minutes. For the first 20, we couldn't get near them. And then, it tailed off a little bit in the second half, but they looked a good side at that point. They had some good quality players who were still at the club, really. And it seems to be a sort of collective loss of confidence and a collective dip in form over there. The stuff that we've done, talking to their fans, or certainly talking via the web to their fans, there's a real amount of pessimism about the club and a lot of disgruntlement about the way it's been run. There's talk of a protest march before the game on Saturday. So everything that could be going wrong for them seems to be going wrong at the moment. And they certainly fear that they're going to get sucked into the relegation battle. They've still got a bit of a points cushion thanks to the early season form, but it doesn't look good. And to think that they were in the Premier League as recently as they were, it just shows how easy it is to go into decline that we've seen at various different clubs over the years.
Poor DNA, possibly.
A different kind of DNA. I mean, sad in a way,
Ince DNA, probably, isn't it?
Blackpool, a good traditional club, So, but it's happened to a lot of clubs that they've gone on that slide, and then gone from the Premier League down into League One. So they could be the next.
Absolutely.
You have a habit of playing teams while they're in turmoil, don't you, Doug?
Yeah, we do. We were just talking about that at work today. We had Leeds, of course, we had Charlton, and unfortunately we don't always do too well against them. So,
you're like the Grim Reaper of the Championship.
It could be a bit interesting, I mean, Charlton have just come to a little bit, haven't they? And then Leeds, obviously, a bit like ourselves, are quite up and down. So, perhaps Blackpool will take a bit of heart from that.
Now, Doug, just finally, we're asking all our correspondents that on the show this week, just what former player from Huddersfield's past would you like to see in the team today? It can be from any era, past or present. Who would you like to see back in that team?
My own personal, I think a lot of supporters would say Frank Worthington. My own personal favourite is Jimmy Nicholson, who was the captain of the 69-70 promotion winning team, and a really good midfielder, played for Northern Ireland, a really good quality player. But there's loads. You could say Steve Kindon, and you probably could say Marcus Stewart as well. They're the ones that immediately spring to mind. But Jimmy Nicholson would be my personal choice. But people would go for quite a few others, I think.
And after the weekend, Jordan Rhodes.
Yeah, he seems almost too close to, too recent to sort of think of him as in those terms. Yeah, but I mean, Jordan was a fantastic player. Great finisher, and really good to see him develop when he was at Huddersfield Town, and to go on and get a good future for himself. Which at the end of the day, that's what life's all about, isn't it? And I think he's pretty much secured his future financially now. So good luck to him. Yeah,
fantastic. Doug, thanks very much for joining us.
No problem.
Speak to you soon. Take care. Bye bye. Bye-bye. There we go, Tim. That's Doug Thompson, Huddersfield Town correspondent there. So, Blackpool up next. You've thrown it in there, though, with this thing of teams that are in turmoil seem to do well against Huddersfield. So, I'm going to go for a draw. I think they may start a trend of draw, lose, Huddersfield for a little bit, because football's weird, isn't it?
I think Huddersfield need to try and get the win under the belt, but like Doug alluded to there about Blackpool's start to the season, I was quite shocked to find out that they went 18 games without a win, and they only got 4 draws out of 18 games, and that was between the 3rd of December and the 8th of March. It's just crazy, no wins between it, and they wonder why they're in the position that they're in. I think that's when all the problems really started for Blackpool. I think it all started becoming blaming each other, the manager blaming the bosses blaming the manager. It's not good to see, but you see a lot of clubs like that in the Championship who try and keep up with the rest of them, if you like your Leicesters, and they just can't keep up.
So who do you fancy for that one then, Tim?
I'm going to stay positive. I'm going to go Huddersfield.
Good stuff. OK, we're having a look at Bradford City now, and in their last match they drew 1-1 against Gillingham, who are managed by their former boss Peter Taylor. Tim, 1-1 draw against Gillingham. Were you disappointed, or were you satisfied? Where did you sit on that one?
I think I'd have probably taken a point before the game, but we should really have won that one. It was a game of two halves, really. I mean, the first half, Bradford City were electric and probably played the best football they've played all season, but in the second it just went back to the difficult game that Bradford had been playing. But it's Peter Taylor, Gillingham, since Peter Taylor has taken over Gillingham. Yeah. I'm a week ahead. Gillingham have been such a difficult team to break down, and, there's been big names in League One that have fallen to them. But, that's football, isn't it?
It is, and they're up against Shrewsbury next. But there was a piece of good news because Aaron McClean scored his first goal for Bradford. How important is that, Tim?
I think it's really important. I think a lot of people expected McClean to be able to come in and just start scoring straight away, but I think people need to cast their minds back. People have short memories and think last season what happened, what Naki Wells could do, what Hansen could do. I think they're forgetting the season before, which really was like the dress rehearsal, if you like. I mean, Hansen and Wells, they weren't reading each other, but now McClean's starting to read those drop downs and things. And it was actually a loanee left back, Adam Drury. Drury. It's not Adam Drury.
Adam, what was his name? Yeah, Adam Drury.
Adam Drury. Yeah. It's because Bradford Park Avenue have a player called Drury, and I get mixed up.
I did the exact same one. Someone at work this week was talking about they knew Adam Drury. And I said, "Oh, you mean the Bradford Park Avenue guy?" And he looked at me like, I was an alien or something. He was like, "What are you on about?" I was like, "Oh, Drury for Park Avenue." He was like, "I don't know what you're on about, mate." There's a Drury at Park Avenue, I'm telling you.
It was his cross anyway, he's a good left back. He'll be helping out Carl McHugh a little bit, because Carl McHugh is still a very young man.
Absolutely. Well, let's hear from Aaron McClean now. He's been having a chat with our very own Pete Chapman.
10 games left now. You should be safe, but it's still not mathematically there. So it's a case of getting as many points as you can from every game, really.
Yeah, of course. From now to the end of the season, it's about winning as many games as possible and finish as high as we can. We want to finish the season on a high. We don't want to just go out with a whimper and just be satisfied with staying up. We want to try and finish as high as possible, so that gives us a good platform for next season.
And on a personal level, you hadn't played many 90 minutes prior to coming to Bradford. So how do you feel your personal fitness is developing?
Yeah, I feel good. I feel a lot sharper and a lot brighter. Through the whole game now, and that's what I needed. I needed to be playing regular football week in, week out, and now I feel 100% fit now, so hopefully I can kick on now and get plenty of goals.
Of course, just after you joined, then Kyle Bennett and Adam Reach joined as well, and they're now getting into the swing of playing for 90 minutes, and that must be of benefit for you as well.
Yeah, of course, it's good for us all, and as a team it's good for us because we're all fit now, and we're all learning about each other's game, and I think it's really, in the last few games, it's really starting to click. The performances from some of the lads has been different class, and like I say, was disappointed to put in such a good performance and not get the 3 points on Saturday, but as long as we keep doing that, then it will turn and we'll start picking up plenty more points.
And Shrewsbury on Saturday, they're a team that's really struggling. They seem to have changed their defensive formations week in, week out, so that could be a chance for you and Hans to exploit any uncertainty there.
Yeah, possibly. We'll go out there and we'll be looking to score goals against them. There's no doubt about it. But they're a team that's fighting for their lives, so we're under no illusions that it's going to be a tough game. And we have to approach it in the right way, and if we can try and get on top, then hopefully it will set them back a bit, and they'll lose a bit of confidence. We have to make sure that we go out there and play with the same energy levels that we have been, and hopefully if we can get an early goal, then try and turn the screw from there.
And as a player and as a squad, you're confident Bradford can finish the season on a high?
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, we've been playing some good football of late, and getting the ball down, passing it, and creating plenty of opportunities. So as long as we keep working hard on and off the ball, and try and up our conversion rate, then I see no reason why we can't finish strongly.
And you can hear the rest of that interview with Aaron McClean on BCB 106.6 FM on Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock. And joining us now is Pete Chapman, who was chatting to Aaron there. Hi, Pete.
Hi, Stephen.
Thanks for popping on. So, much relief, isn't it, that he's got his first goal?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, the explosion of joy in the ground from the fans and the players when he scored, and it was very well taken as well, possibly so well taken because he didn't have to think about what he's going to do. It just came to him, and he just had to put his foot on it. And it's a lot easier to do that in some ways than it is when you're through one-on-one thinking, where do I put it? Yeah,
absolutely. 1-1 against Gillingham, are you happy with that, or what do you make of that?
Bradford dominated completely. Gillingham had one chance, which came from a defensive mix-up, They shouldn't have got the ball from the centre line into the back of the net so quickly. They did. It was a great player, scored against Bradford last year at Rally Parade, and these things happen, I suppose. It's just a shame they couldn't make the dominance turn into 3 points. There were massive positives. I mean, Kyle Bennett had another outstanding game. Adam Reach was good again, and there's definitely something developing there. And Dolan in midfield as well, in for Gary Jones, who's still feeling the effects of the virus, had a great game. And it was noticeable that rather than just hoof it forward, which was starting to happen in the long run without a win.
Yeah.
There were now, if there wasn't that ball on the diagonal one to Hansen, because he just got no protection last week. He's been fouled left, right and centre, and then free kicks were given against him.
Well, Parky's come out, hasn't he, and he said that Hansen needs a bit more protection. I take it you agree.
I mean, I asked him that straight afterwards. I said it seemed that James was getting free kicks given against him when he was the one being fouled, and he went, yeah, totally. He had a player stood on his toes, he had one beside him and one behind him. If you're going to jump, you're going to touch one of those, and just because you touch them doesn't mean you're trying to gain an unfair advantage. No. But there was a lot of, passing it around the back, waiting for the opportunity, which Bradford haven't been doing for a while.
I think I didn't manage to read the full article, but Simon Parker in the TNA, I think he wrote an article which basically said that, according to statistics, Hansen has committed some of the most fouls in the league, hasn't he?
Yep, that's up to statistics say, he's committed the most fouls, and it's because every time he jumps, I think he suffers from how tall he is.
Yeah.
And refs think, well, he must have got an unfair advantage there somewhere. But, he doesn't commit anywhere near as many fouls as it appears.
Just his DNA.
And it's in this thing that it's always easier to give it against the striker than it is to give it to against the defender.
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, some of the ones being given were on the edge of the penalty area. You give the attacking team a free kick there, and you're saying have a shot at goal, basically. Whereas if you give it to the defending team, you're saying pressure's off.
You see, it kind of reminds me of, this is going away from Bradford City, but when David Beckham scored against Greece, the free kick the foul from that free kick was actually just a push in the back. That's all it was, and he wasn't scared to give it on that stage. Yeah. But what do you make of McClean's comments where he was saying that everything's starting to gel now? Do you think that could stand Bradford in good stead? Because, we look at Rotherham, who probably came up about the same as us, and we do always compare ourselves because it's similar size, etc. Yeah. They just kind of took to League One straight away, and they've had all that luck, and they haven't had as many injuries as Bradford, they haven't had as many breaks in play. But McClean says he can see things changing now.
I'd agree, yeah. Watching, I didn't see the Colchester game, but talking to Simon Parker, he said they played very, very well. There was only going to be one team that could win that game. But against Gillingham, you could see it, especially with the likes of Kyle Bennett, Adam Reach, Dolan and McClean. You can see now that they're getting full 90 minutes of football under their belt. Kyle Bennett hadn't played for 4 months when he came to Bradford. I was chatting to Phil Parkinson about it after the game, and he said, it's 4 months out of the game, and then he gets sent off in his first game. So it was all stop-start to begin with, and now he's getting a run in the team. He's getting a run of 90 minutes, and he was tearing them apart at times on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Shrewsbury up next, Pete. What do you think of that one?
Well, as I was saying there to Aaron McClean, it's going to be a difficult one because they are fighting for their lives. They want to stay in this division. I think they came up the year before Bradford, and they want to stay there. But they've got a new manager in Mike Jackson. I think they're deliberately calling him Mike rather than Michael. And but they've played 3 or 4 different formations at the back in the last 3 or 4 games, and it's a difficult one. Apparently, they were very good against Wolves last Saturday, but then struggled against Colchester on Tuesday, probably because they put in such a good performance at Wolves. It's going to be tough for Bradford, but I think if Parkinson was saying today they need to go there like they're the home team and go at it from kick-off and just take the game to Shrewsbury.
Absolutely. Let's hope it's a thriller. Pete, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Do you like our Crowbar Down? It was terrible, wasn't it?
It's fantastic. I was just thinking, some of the players will have to, look at themselves in the mirror.
I was going to think, beat it. Can City beat it? We'll see. More terrible puns coming up shortly.
Click subscribe on iTunes and get the Route 1 show every week for free.
OK, we're having a look at the Conference Premier now and Halifax Town, and joining us on the line, he's got his match fitness back. It's Andrew Pinfield. Hi, Andrew.
Evening, Steve.
I think you may have caught that man flu that Tim had a few weeks ago, actually.
Yeah, that's what it was, yeah.
Now, it was another good win for Halifax Town last week against Welling. Lee Gregory penalty. What did you make of it, Andrew?
It was a superb win, in fairness. We went down there hoping to get a result. Welling's quite good at home, and we've got a couple of away wins. We've now made that 3 away wins and 2 back-to-back. So we deserved the win. Lee Gregory got the all-important goal at the start of the second half. He would have scored. He rounded the keeper, and the defender brought him down. So in the event, he got red-carded as well. Lee Gregory got back on his feet and took the penalty and got the all-important winner. So a good 3 points, and it keeps our season alive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Andrew, Neil Aspin, he said that he didn't, after 37 games, he didn't expect to be in 5th spot. Now, he said that before Tuesday night's fixtures, because Halifax have now moved down to 7th. Where did you see Halifax, probably at this stage the season, at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, probably 5th from bottom, to be honest with you. I mean, that was the aim of everybody at the club, just to regain status and to be in the conference for next season. It's really got everybody's expectations going, because at the start of the season, when you get a few wins, you think, well, we might be able to compete. Then when you beat the likes of Grimsby at home, which we did, and go away at Luton and put in a hell of a performance, you think, well, maybe something of the season might be a bit better. But nobody could envisage exactly how well we've done. Just losing 1 game at home has been remarkable. But yeah, at the start of the season, we'd have said to stop in the league, it'd have been good, but nobody expected us to be, but still, in with a chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, it's all building up, isn't it, to these key months of April and May now, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing, because if you look at our remaining fixtures and who we've got left to play, I think we've 9 games left, and 6 wins, 18 points would give us 75, and that would definitely make the playoffs.
Yeah.
But the teams that we're playing, we've got Barnet, we've got Grimsby, we've got Kidderminster, the teams in and around us. Even the game on Monday against Alfreton, it's a key game, because although they're second, it looks like they're cementing their playoff spot. If we can nick the 3 points off them, then 5 wins out of 8 seems a lot easier. I know it's going to be a very interesting end to the season, but we do need to be taking points off those teams around us, and the games like Southport away, you'd like to think that we could get 3 points against them. So all in all, it's got to be very interesting last couple of months, and no Town supporter would think it'd be this exciting for us first season back in the league.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, like you said, Andrew, you're playing Alfreton on Monday, and some names familiar with Bradford City fans. Nicky Law's the manager, and Jake Spate, he was the one who scored 2 against you last time. Do you think you can probably turn that around in front of the BT cameras?
Well, we don't have a good record on the BT cameras. I know the first game at Cambridge, we got well and truly beaten after the first 20. We took the lead and had 2 sendings off and got beat 5-1. And our other BT appearance last month at Chester also ended in defeat. So hopefully it's a case of third time lucky. But regarding Alfreton, they've got Jake Spate, and actually they've got John Worsnop, who Bradford Park Avenue supporters know rather well. But the thing from that point of view is that Alfreton have just had 3 points taken off them this last week, because John Worsnop wasn't registered correctly. So they are still second, but they'd be a hell of a lot better off if they had those 3 extra points.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. I read the club statement, and I read around the issue of Alfreton getting the 3 points taken off them. Now, the game that's in question was against Kidderminster Harriers on the 14th of December, and Alfreton actually won that game, and they got the 3 points taken off them from that game. For me, I don't think that's a harsh enough punishment, to be honest. I think that's just we'll take the 3 points off you. I think maybe this is just me being a bit hard, but I think it should be a bit of a stricter one to consider you get 10-point deduction for going into administration.
Yeah, possibly so. It's a funny situation, to be honest, because the points were taken off, because when they actually faxed through the registration of John Worsnop, what the Conference League is saying is that it came through blank. So whether they put it back to front or what, I don't know, but they said that they couldn't see a signature and it was a blank registration. That's why they've taken the points off. So you can say it might be harsh, it might not be harsh, but at the end of the day, the league have deducted the 3 points. But we're not bothered about Alfreton now, we're bothered about Halifax Town.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we are asking all of our correspondents, although I forgot to ask Jennifer Barrett and Pete Chapman this, if you could have any former Halifax player past, any era, who could be put into this current team, who would you pick, Andrew?
I have a few favourites. Probably when I was growing up watching them in the early 80s or the mid-80s, Rick Alden, the flying winger, not just because he was a good footballer, but his goal-scoring celebrations was something else. We had some good players in the past. Jeff Horsfield, more recently, was a good player, but I'd probably go for Rick Alden down the left-hand wing because he was a flying machine and a character as well.
Fantastic. Andrew, thank you very much.
Cheers now.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
There we go. Andrew Pinfield on Halifax Town. Alfreton, what do you think? I'm going to go for a draw, I think. What about yourself?
Well, Alfreton, they don't seem to draw that much.
No.
Apparently, away from home.
Facts, though, don't they?
No, they don't. Alfreton have won 8 games away from home, and they've lost 11. So they don't have a too shabby away record.
No.
So I actually think I'm going to go for it. I think Halifax could win.
Here we go.
Nick a 1-0.
Nick a 1-0, we'll have that. OK, we're having a look at the Conference North now and Guiseley, and joining us on the line now is our Guiseley correspondent. It's Colin Robertson. Hi, Colin.
Hi, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. You're a bit in demand this week, aren't you? Because lo and behold, listening to West Yorkshire Sport Daily on BBC Radio Leeds, Matt Bauer's on, the manager, and guess who else? Colin Robertson pipes up. Colin, what's going on?
You've either got it or you haven't.
Does that mean the BBC Radio Leeds team are going to sign you up for the Guiseley Community Six-a-side? You, Popey, I can imagine it.
I fancy I'm probably a better player than him, to be honest.
You're not going to forget your roots, so are you, Colin? That's what we're saying, because Phil here, Yorkshire Evening Post head right covering Leeds, we had him on here first before he went off on Sky Sports and Talk Sport, and he's left us now. He won't even speak to us.
You set these things going, Steve. It doesn't go back. Anyway, with a man with my hairline, I don't like it when you start talking about roots.
Fantastic. Right, see, that's the type of patter that got him on BBC Radio Leeds. There you go. So, a very interesting week for guys. A bit of momentum building now. It's quite exciting. 3-3 draw against Stockport. Disappointing, goal at the bitter end there, but then come right back with a win against Staley Bridge. So it's looking really positive, isn't it, Colin?
Yeah, well, last Saturday, how frustrating was that? I mean, you go to Edgeley Park, it's a big stadium, as you know. It's a team that's been through the mill. We'd beaten them the week before, good 2-0 victory at Nethermoor. We go into a 3-1 lead, and to be honest, we were looking deservedly on top, but, it was so frustrating to concede right at the end, right with that penalty. And, at the end of the day, they're a one-man team, basically.
I would like to point out, Colin, that last week I did mention Phil Drevens. I did warn Guiseley.
Yeah, you did, yeah. Like you say, he didn't play on the Tuesday night.
No.
And they looked pretty toothless, to be honest. And they were fairly reliant. Well, they were very reliant on him throughout. But he's a real class player, obviously.
Yeah.
And, he got a hat-trick, and all credit to him. 2 of the finishes were just top class. The way he just ghosted off his man for the first was brilliant. Played the ball very coolly into the bottom right-hand corner. The second one was just brilliant. Just opened up his body, connected it well with the inside of the left foot, and gave Steve Drench no chance. But it was a very good performance from him, but really disappointing just to give the points away with the last kick of the game. And we were just sitting too deep. And we thought there was some controversy about the penalty.
Yeah.
The free kick was a bit soft that led up to it, but really overall it was just, I think we brought it onto ourselves just that little bit towards the end of that game, and that's what Mark Bauer said to himself. He was bitterly disappointed. It was a point. He'd actually said 4 points out of Stockport home and away, probably would have taken that at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when you concede so late on 2 goals that you think you're going to get the 3 points, it felt a bit like a defeat, to be honest.
Yeah, I just have to say one thing about, I've spoken to Matt Bauer a couple of times and hear him on Radio Leeds tonight. He doesn't talk like a typical manager in a way. I don't quite know how to kind of articulate what I mean, but it's quite I find his manner quite refreshing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that or...
Yeah, I go along with that. He's like on Tuesday night, you imagine at half-time what's going to happen in the changing rooms. I was sort of having a bit of a joke. I was thinking, the polystyrene cups were flying or something at half-time because, you don't imagine that he's got a very calming manner. It's very level-headed, I think, and I think that helps an awful lot.
I mean, compared to, say, someone like Dacey at Park Avenue, for example.
And who
seems more in the kind of old school, hairdryer.
I think it's just a different type, but he's that's the way he approaches. My approach to the game is about being level-headed, about he's very articulate and talks well about the game, and I think that has its strengths. And of course, there are just different types of different characters. But,
different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, but obviously he can still rally the troops.
Yeah,
and that's what happened at half-time against Stalybridge this week. Because by all accounts, woeful in the first half.
Yeah,
not at the game, not at the races. And then in the second half, up pops Danny Ellis and Danny Hall, and who needs strikers when he got centre half?
gets you on your way. So it's North Ferriby up next, Colin. That's interesting for numerous reasons. That was the fixture last time got the run going after a difficult start for Mark in the job. So it's interesting that it's come full circle.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one now. And they're in good form.
Yeah.
They beat Worcester City last week, the week before, but they were down to 10 men, Ferriby, and were pulled back to 1 each. And they still, with 10 men, went on and beat Worcester City 2-1. And the quality that they've got. Jarman's banging in the goals, penalties, and they've got quality. Wilson up front, another great player. I just remember that. We played exceptionally well at their ground. I'm sure they'll remember it. And I think, it was a very tight game on that night. I think it'll be a close one to call. But it's an interesting one, isn't it? It's a real barometer of whether Guiseley have got a really good quality squad together. Because I think, we're so different in the league positions, but our run of form on a good pitch against a decent side will be very interesting to watch, because we haven't had that. When we faced Telford, it was a quagmire, and it wasn't really a contest. You could really tell who was the better footballing team, because football couldn't be played. When we placed Brackley on a good surface, it was very tight, it was good, it was competitive. Brackley perhaps haven't been in as good a form as they had been, but we were deserved victors there. So this one is another very interesting one for me, because if we were to get in the playoff places, how would we fare against those top sides? Well, this is a real litmus test.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Colin. On our notes, I've actually put Guiseley face a tough test of their playoff credentials against North Ferriby. And I saw North Ferriby play against Bradford Park Avenue, and they are a very strong team. They like to play at a fast pace, but they do have weaknesses for me against Park Avenue.
Now, listen to Tim this week, Colin, and tell Mark.
The weaknesses were... from set pieces, Bradford Park Avenue were all over North Ferriby, to be perfectly honest. And with like you said, Ellis and Hall they scored in midweek. They could be the kind of players that come up top trumps against North Ferriby.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the goals are coming in from all around the field. I mean, last time we played, Wayne Brooksby, of course, had a marvellous game at Old Club and all that he faced. So, that you're still reliant on the creative players to actually step up and produce the goods. I think, though, your point about the set pieces is very well made, because I think they're so important. I actually think it'll be a really good game. I think if you're thinking about going to a game this weekend, this would be a cracking one to get down to, because both sides will attack, and I think it'll be one of those. I'm optimistically thinking it'll be fair. There's a fair chance it'll be as high scoring as it was in the return fixture where we won 3-2.
And Bradford City are away this weekend, Huddersfield are away this weekend, and there are offers on season tickets, aren't there?
Exactly. I mean, the fact that if you can come along, bring your season ticket down, You'll get, I think it's half price actually. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a good discount on the day, and the quality of football is much better. I mean, it's funny. I was just thinking that in a way, one of the things is that still sometimes the perception is all jumpers for goalposts for some league fans, isn't it?
Yeah,
and if they haven't stepped across the threshold of any team below League Two, say, I think they'd find that the quality of the football just isn't that much different, and the experience isn't that much different. No.
I would concur 100%.
Sorry, Colin, just for people like myself, does that include FlexiCard holders?
Oh, I don't know. What am I, the commercial manager?
You're the Guiseley correspondent.
Check website for details.
Will do.
Fantastic, Colin. Thank you very much for joining us, and I'll make sure that I tweet Popey and tell him that you think you'd have him in a game of football. We'll set up some kind of penalty shootout. Colin, thank you very much, mate.
I base that on nothing.
Just a feeling.
Just a feeling, yeah.
Exactly. Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Colin.
Cheers guys.
Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye.
There we go. That's Colin Roberts, and I tell you what, that is going to be an absolute cracker.
That is going to be a very good
game. Versus North Ferriby. If I wasn't priorly engaged, I would make sure I'd be getting myself down to that one. I agree with you. I actually think Guiseley can get at North Ferriby, and I think they can get the 3 points. What do you think, Tim?
I completely agree. I think they could. I think especially from that set piece, that was one of the main weaknesses I spotted.
Yeah.
Park Avenue's goal came from a free kick. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
We'll wait and see.
You're listening to the Route 1 show, covering football in West Yorkshire and beyond.
OK, let's have a look at Bradford Park Avenue now, and joining us on the line is our Park Avenue correspondent. It's Chris Bell. Hi, Chris.
Hi, mate, you're right.
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for joining us. So we'll start last week, the game that you and I covered for BCB Radio against Harrogate. 0-0 draw, but probably not a bad 0-0, was it, Chris?
Yeah, overall it was probably a fair result, wasn't it? I think that's what most people have come out and said about it. 0-0, good result from Park Avenue.
Should have won it though, shouldn't they? Should have won it at the end.
Well, it was one of those, wasn't it? Both sides could have nicked it in stoppage time. With the great chance for Paul Beasley, who somehow missed from 3 or 4 yards out, right at the death, and then 20 seconds later, Harrogate from that resulted from that goal kick straight down the other end, and had a great chance of their own really to nick it with Dominic Rowe going in on goal, and both of them really should have done better, quite frankly, and that would have nicked the points for either side. But it wasn't meant to be. A good clean sheet though from Park Avenue's perspective against obviously a Harrogate side that are going very, very well at the moment.
Yeah, it's been a good run of results, Chris, and I think Park Avenue need to start playing more of the games on a Wednesday night after the winning the week before against Workington, and then a 4-0 win against Gainsborough on Wednesday as well. Could Wednesday nights be the future?
You do wonder, don't you?
Should play Champions League with that record.
It was done for the sake of the pitch, basically. Whether there's scope for the club to be able to do that on a permanent basis, who knows? It wouldn't surprise me if they were thinking about it. For some reason, as we said, the last couple of Wednesday night games, the only 2 Wednesday night games, so far that they've played, have resulted in 5 goals, 2 clean sheets, and 6 points. So maybe we could be onto something there. It's depends obviously on use of the stadium. It isn't used on Wednesday night, but for some reason Monday has always been the night that they've looked to use. Obviously, depending on what happens with the Bulls situation as well, of course, that Park Avenue are mildly involved in, could depend a lot on next year where they're playing to start with.
Any update on that, Chris? Because just for people who don't know, some representatives of Park Avenue were said to be putting in a bid for the Bulls. Any progress with that? Is it likely to come to fruition?
Well, nothing seems to have come out yet. At the moment, it's still at the stage where the RFL and the administrators or whoever for the Bradford Bulls are still looking over the bids. The only thing that does seem to have come out in the last few days is the whole Mandy Kukash bid. Obviously, she's the wife of the owner of the Salford City, Salford City Reds as well, Salford Red Devils now. and she appears to have effectively just admitted defeat, and she doesn't expect that her bid will get it. So that leaves you with, obviously, the Bradford City bid, which, again, doesn't look particularly likely. You get the sense from the Bradford City bid that even
Tim was shaking his head, can I just say?
Well, this is the thing, it doesn't surprise me, because you do get the sense that, even if the Bradford City bid were to somehow get it, nothing's come out from them and said, actually, we do want this.
Yeah.
Whereas, both Richard Lamb has obviously made no secret about his intent on buying the Bulls, and from what we've heard from from Park Avenue, they don't see themselves as favourites, but they would like to get their hands on it effectively if they can, just to help both themselves and obviously to help the Bradford Bulls as well. Obviously, I think it's due to come out tomorrow, I understand. As of last night, obviously, during the Park Avenue build-up that we did on B2B Sports Extra, it was due to come out either today or tomorrow. Nothing seems to have come out today, so fingers crossed from Park Avenue's perspective that something will come out in the next day or two, next 24 hours or so.
Yeah, well, I think we'll keep up to date with that on Twitter, so if people are following us, we'll keep them up to date. But let me just explain the Bradford City thing. There's not enough money to go around at Bradford. They're kind of scraping a little bit as it is. And
this is what astounds me.
It would seem to me like a sinkhole.
This is the thing, though, Tim. There's no... we can say exactly the same thing about Bradford Park Avenue, quite honestly.
How?
I was talking, obviously commentating with Barry last night, and we were saying that if there's directors, involved in Bradford Park Avenue that have obviously got the money that they want to put into this Bulls bid, well, you kind of think, well, in that case, why aren't these people putting the money into Bradford Park Avenue since they're already on that book? You know what I mean? It's like, why would you wait and try and buy the Bulls when you could try and help Bradford Park Avenue in their current state and put your money in there as well? Obviously, if the bid doesn't get accepted, you wouldn't be too surprised if some people said or were thinking, well, you were going to put the money into that's not come off, why don't you help the club anyway? Because, the last few weeks especially, we've heard the Park Avenue manager, John Deasy, saying that he's having to manage his budget, very tightly and very closely, and obviously, he had to let Danny Glover go as well, who was a promising striker, shall we say, that from what we'd seen of him in his short spell, but he was released, and John Deasy decided, well, the budget can't handle it.
Yeah.
So you do wonder, don't you, about this whole situation, that obviously if the Park Avenue bid for the Bulls doesn't get the go-ahead, there might be a few people wondering, okay, well, that didn't work out, now try and put the money into the club that you're already on the board of. And obviously, with results like last night as well, if they can get a good end to the season, Park Avenue, then you'd hope for the club to be able to go in the right direction, that they'd look to do so. So,
crisp score prediction for Park Avenue Brackley?
Well, it's going to be a difficult one. Park Avenue, obviously, they got a great win last night, on Wednesday night against Gainsbury, 4-0 winners. Gainsbury, if they'd have taken the chances, it could have been a relatively different game, it's fair to say. But frankly, they didn't. Park Avenue, when the chances did come, they made the most of it. What was clear last night, which hasn't been for the last 3 or 4 games, is the fact that they were clearing the ball away from the defence, and over the last 2 or 3 games, we saw on Saturday, Steve, that whenever Park Avenue cleared the ball away from the back line, every time it dropped to a Harrogate Town player, and it just allowed the opposition.
No physicality, did there?
There was exactly. There was nobody there to try and hold the ball up. Park Avenue were giving possession away, and it was just inviting Harrogate on time and time again to put on the pressure. Last night, every time Park Avenue got the ball clear, it actually found a green shirt, it found a teammate, and it was remarkable the way that they were building up the play. They were so much better going forward than they have been for a number of weeks last night, and it culminated in 4 goals. Some great team play, great goal from Chib Chalaka as well, from a decent range as well for the 4th. Another clean sheet as well, all importantly. That's 3 on the bounce. 4 clean sheets in the last 5 games. for Park Avenue.
Yeah.
Obviously, going to Brackley on Saturday, they had a bad result. I think they lost 3-1 at home to Gloucester City on Tuesday night, so they'll be wanting to bounce back from that. Obviously, they're in and around that playoff mix. They'll be wanting to get there. They were beaten playoff finalists last season. It's going to be a difficult game for Park. I mean, you don't get it wrong, because you've got to look at that and think, well, Brackley, they'll want to bounce back. They suffered a defeat that, frankly, I think everyone involved with Brackley will think we probably shouldn't have suffered that before the game anyway.
No.
It's going to be a hard one. They need to get the points to keep doing that playoff run, especially with the likes of Guiseley, creeping up the table with games in hand. From Park Avenue's perspective, if they can go there and take a point away, probably be a decent result. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not going to be there myself. It's going to be Bernard and Trevor. We expected to be doing the commentary that one. I can't make it due to
BCB.
Yeah, for BCB, of course. I'll go for a draw. I think that will be a good result. I think Park Avenue would be pretty pleased with that. If they can get another clean sheet out of it, even if it is just another 0-0, these clean sheets are racking up and doing wonders for Park Avenue in recent weeks.
Great stuff. Chris, thank you very much for joining us, mate.
No problem at all, mate.
Take care.
Thank you.
Speak to you later. Bye-bye. There we go. Chris Bell bottling it when it comes to a 300-mile trip there. You heard it first. Sending Bernard on his bike. Go on, Bernard, get down there, lads. Brackley, Park Avenue, how do you see that one? I think I've got a feeling Brackley may just be a little bit too strong, possibly.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult trip for Park Avenue. They've only won 5 on the road this season. I think this is going to be the toughest away game yet.
I agree. OK, we're having a look at this weekend's Premiership games. We're going to start with that 12:45 kick-off on Saturday. Tim, it's Chelsea versus Arsenal. Chelsea, losing to Aston Villa, the fantastic goal by Delph, Leeds United. It surprised me because it's pegged Chelsea back somewhat.
Yeah.
Do Arsenal have a chance of getting back into that title race, do you think?
I think the door's wide open for them, and they need to do it now, to be honest, because they are hunting down the necks of Chelsea, and Liverpool are on the same points difference as them. However, Arsenal haven't scored in the past 2 games against Chelsea. I admit one of them was in the Capital One Cup, but the other one was a 0-0 draw in the Premier League, and Jose Mourinho hasn't lost to Arsene Wenger. He's won 5 and drawn 5.
Yeah, so it's not good reading, is it?
No, I think Chelsea would take the draw on that one, to be honest, to keep Arsenal 4 points back.
Do you know, I think, it's amazing, because I was reading a piece today about Flamini, and he was talking about, he said, how Wenger's changed during his reign, and he says he hasn't changed at all during his entire time there. But you go, well, hang on, Flamini, you were only there, in 2005 or something. That's when he stopped winning things.
Yeah,
maybe he needs to change. You know, I mean, come on, he needs to. For me, Wenger just doesn't have the killer instinct.
I think he's building something. I think I can definitely see something happening at Arsenal. I think he's finally been able to get a bit of funding behind him. Maybe even just a bit of confidence, to be honest. I mean,
needs a bit of that Mourinho type of bullishness, though. I think possibly.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can be over bullish. I mean, I rewatched the interview with him where he went, I don't want to talk about the referee because I don't want to get fined. He got fined anyway. So, I mean, I will side with Chelsea on the Aston Villa game. I don't think Willian should have been sent off. I think I don't think that one. Ramirez, definite red. Give him an extra ban for me, because that was disgusting what he did.
It was a bad tackle, wasn't it?
But I've got a quick question for you. It's not about these. Fabian Delph, did he mean it?
For me, absolutely. Absolutely 100% meant it. What do you think?
I think it's a bit of arm for one, and
the only doubt is his celebration was a little bit like,
did
I just do that?
I think he ran onto it knowing, if I get anything onto this, it's going in. So
fair enough, Fabian Delph. England squad, Fabian Delph? For me, I'd take him. Who would you have, Delph or Cleverley? Ding, 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 we have a winner.
Yeah, I think it might be Delph.
Cardiff, Liverpool, what a win at Old Trafford. Absolutely amazing. And you called it, actually, and I just didn't think it was going to happen, but it did, and look at them, 62 points with the game in hand.
Man U just crumbled on the day, didn't they? I mean, I think you just have to mention about the penalties.
It was bizarre, wasn't it?
I think they were penalties.
There were penalties, though, weren't they? I like Moyes after he was just, some of them were, some of them weren't. I mean, he was just like, he wasn't going to argue which.
For me, about the Sturridge's penalty.
Yeah.
He should have had one later on.
Yeah, he should.
But for me, I'm changing my mindset on diving and fouls. I don't think you have to touch a player for it to be a foul, because I go.
Gary Neville was saying that, wasn't he, on Twitter about it?
He got a lot of stick. He got a lot of stick from Arsenal fans.
Yeah.
And his reply to him was, "I bet Aaron Ramsey wish he jumped when Shawcross came in." And I was like,
G-Nev, that's a bit below the belt. I was like, I didn't see that.
Arsenal fans, do you want some ice for that burn?
That is.
You've got if you had a 6-foot defender sliding at your feet, would you jump or would you stand there and take the bit? I'd jump.
Well, this is some of the argument with Wilshere is that he's too brave, isn't it? He gets all these injuries. So Cardiff, Liverpool, then who
it's got to go for Liverpool there.
Got to be the pool, hasn't it? Definitely. We should briefly mention Everton, who were in 6th place, got a couple of games in hand on Spurs. Champions League is not for me at all with Everton, but definitely
still 9
I think they're better than
off.
Spurs. I think they're a lot better than Spurs.
They are. It's that 5th Europa League spot now, though, isn't it? Between them, between Tottenham Hotspur, Everton, and even United. I mean, would you have said that at the beginning of the year? Man United will be struggling to get in Europa League. Never mind Champions League.
It's great, isn't it? It's just great.
It's weird. It's mental.
Yeah, it's elsewhere. Manchester City in action against Fulham. City did well against Hull. They lost the captain, but they got there in the end. 2-0 victory. 3 games in hand over Chelsea. 6 points behind. You'd expect them to beat Fulham. You can only see one-way traffic there.
Basically, I think it's just going to be steamrolling. It's going to be cheers for showing up, Fulham. To be fair,
exactly. See you later.
I mean, it doesn't hold good stead for Fulham that Man City have the best chance conversion rate in the Premier League of 19.2%. Thank you, Opta.
Hey, fact sheet.
Yep.
So elsewhere, just briefly mention. I mean, we've touched on Manchester United there in action against West Ham. Good boost, Champions League though, victory against Olympiacos.
I was listening to TalkSport last night, and for once, I think it was Adrian Durham, and I think I finally agree with one thing that he said, and he went, "That's it for Man U this season." They can enjoy the next round, because
no chance after
the only team Man U would possibly have a chance against in that next round is Chelsea. Maybe Dortmund. Maybe Dortmund.
Dortmund are weak, aren't they, at the minute? Lost players.
But I don't know. Definitely not a trip to Spain or Bayern.
No, absolutely not.
But as far as the Premier League goes, they're still fighting for Europa. I think they need European football next year, unless they just accept it and try and rebuild.
Financial loss they'll take, though, from no Champions League football,
But the thing is, we could argue this, but are Man U big enough to be able to be carried by the Malaysian support, the Eastern support? Would that be enough to carry them for one season?
Manchester United, they've been such a big team for so long, they had so much money, they should be able to be carried for one season without Champions League football, you would think.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Tweet us your thoughts.
Yeah, tweet us your thoughts. Sherwood, Spurs, do you think he'll keep the job?
Jurgen Klinsmann, I said it last week. Jurgen Klinsmann.
You did. He's gone crazy as Sherwood, hasn't he? He's over passionate. Do you know what I mean? He's like,
there was a Vine earlier on the week when he went, "I'm the biggest Spurs fan ever," and it went back to when he said that his dad took him to Arsenal as a kid.
Which about sums it up, doesn't it?
It does. I think he's a stopgap, really. I think he's a bit of a Di Matteo kind of character.
Yeah, I agree. So that's all we've got time for on the Route 1 show this week, but we should make you aware we've got our website up and running, Tim.
We have a website. It is theroute1show.co.uk.
Yeah, so log on to there. We're going to have articles and
blogs,
all the links. Yeah. Mine and Tim's pretty pictures on there as well at some point.
There will be our pretty pictures on there.
Yes, exactly. Lots of airbrushing, I think. So do log on to that, as well as everywhere else you can find the show as well. I've been Stephen Brown. With me for this episode has been Tim Feather. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you.
Follow us on Twitter at The Route 1 Show. Visit our Tumblr, tumblr.com/The Route 1 Show, or email us, theroute1show@gmail.com.